What's up guys, my name is Ace and welcome to a brand new series that I'm going to be doing on my channel called The Breakdown. In this series, I'm going to be analyzing both subscriber gameplay as well as my own gameplay and talking about some of the lessons that you can learn. Some of it will be good things that I notice in the gameplay and other things will be mistakes that I notice in the gameplay. And I'm not trying to be overly critical with this. I hope nobody takes any offense to anything I say. Everybody plays a little bit differently. I'm going to be examining this from my playstyle perspective, so just keep that in mind as I go through this. I'm not trying to put anybody down if I say you screwed something up or you made some sort of a mistake. I'm just trying to be as educational as possible with this series. So without further ado, let's get into the first episode. Alright guys, so in this first episode, we're going to be looking at a gameplay from JP Cyclone. And this is going to be a team deathmatch gameplay on Freight. And the first thing I want to talk about is the class setup that he decided to use. So you'll see he's going to be using the Ripper with the muzzle brake and extended mags, which is a great choice. The Ripper is very powerful. This is the exact attachments that I use on the Ripper, so great choice of weapon and attachments. For perks, he has Agility, Stalker, Dead Silence, Amplify, and Focus. So Agility, that's great. It complements the Ripper nicely. It just adds a little bit more mobility to something that's already mobile, and I like that. Stalker, on the other hand, is not a good choice for this class in my opinion. SMGs have a very high movement speed while aimed down sight when you compare them to LMGs or assault rifles, and Stalker doesn't really do much to add to that. I don't know the exact numbers of that, but just playing off of SMGs, you have more than enough mobility while aiming down sight, and after watching this gameplay, I notice you aren't even taking advantage of Stalker on this class at all. There's very, very few situations where Stalker helped you in this gameplay. So I would highly recommend using something like Quick Draw instead, or potentially a 2-point value perk like Marathon, and then a 1-value perk like Ready Up or something like that. Now, aside from all that, we have Dead Silence and Amplify, which is a great combination. You guys all know that I use this combination very often on my classes, and it's very, very effective. And also you have Focus, so you're definitely doing something right. You're not completely clueless when it comes to creating classes, that's for sure. Focus is extremely important, and you should have it on almost every single one of your classes. Alright, so let's get into the gameplay here, and you'll notice he joined a little bit late, and I like how he approached this. He joined late and he starts off just sort of walking around the map, taking in his surroundings a little bit before getting his first kill. A lot of people will sprint straight off spawn when they join a match late. He kind of took a second to take in his surroundings, but right here is the first mistake that I'm seeing. He actually just crouched right now. The position he's in this current situation is very, very bad. This is a death trap. This is a really, really popular choke point where you go to die. So if you want to die, crouch in this spot right here. Look at all of the vantage points that your enemies have on you. There's 2 windows. There's the 3rd story to that building where you can get on top of that roof. There's that big door that's open on ground level right there. There's the little alleyway that goes over to where that gate is that goes underground. And then there's also to his left as well as the middle of the map. And there's just so many places that you can be shot from, and the only piece of cover you have is that barrel, and that's not going to keep you alive for very long. The enemy almost always has the advantage in this situation. So this is an area you should definitely never be crouching in, and the only time you should ever really pass through here is if you're doing just that. You're just passing through as fast as possible. This is where you go to die, like I said. And of course, he actually dies in this situation. This is his first death. This could have been completely avoided by just staying out of this area or approaching it a little bit smarter, having maybe a peek around the doorway and then getting back out of the way. And we're actually going to come back to this spot on the map quite a few times throughout this video. Okay, so now he's spawned in, and this is something that I really like that he does. Remember, he doesn't have Ready Up on his class, and you'll notice that he's walking around almost every corner that he goes around. So he's ready for a gunfight after he goes around every corner, and he's also checking his corners, which I really like about his gameplay. He's playing to his class. He's playing properly to his class. But right here is another mistake that I noticed. It is a relatively minor mistake, but you'll notice he came in, he checked both doorways. He did not look up though. And in this building, there is almost always somebody on the 2nd or 3rd level on the catwalks, almost all of the time. And this is the enemy's half of the map at this point. So he should have expected an enemy to be on the 2nd or 3rd floor, or at least checked for an enemy there. Turns out there wasn't an enemy there at the time, or I don't think so, but it's still a little thing that I would do differently after entering this room. I would check bottom floor first, and then I would have a quick look up top. He doesn't even look up there at all the entire time he passes through this building, and if someone were sitting up there, he would have been an easy kill. Okay, so during this little lull in the gameplay, I want to point out something that you'll notice throughout the entire game, or that I noticed. Look at the height that his crosshairs are aiming. Not right now, but most of the time, they're aiming down just slightly. This is a very, very common problem that I see with a lot of people's gameplay. They're not ready for a gunfight. Like right now, he's aiming at where the enemy's feet would be when he comes around that corner. See that? He just started aiming at that enemy's feet. And we'll pause it right here to see that death. And I want to rewind this and play it back again. So again, he's aiming quite low here. If he ran into an enemy face to face, like right around this corner, then he'd be high enough. But you have to expect that there's going to be enemies a little bit further away as well. So he should have been aiming a little bit higher to begin with. He did check to the right first, which was good. And then he realized he saw an enemy and he got on target quite quickly. So that was good. But right here, also, I wanted to point out in that last gunfight, instead of strafing from side to side with his stalker perk, he strafed straight towards his enemy. So he was just walking towards his enemy as he was shooting, which just creates a bigger target as you get closer. So I would have strafed side to side a little bit in that gunfight. Of course, he did win the gunfight, so good for him, but that's still a little issue that I noticed. And then he gets shot in the back here. That only could have been avoided if he would have swept around the outside of the map instead of pushing towards the middle, but he did end up in kind of a tough situation there, where he ended up in a gunfight that he wasn't quite expecting, and there's really not much he could have done to avoid that after already putting himself in that situation. Now, coming up in a second here is something that I see a lot of new players do, and it's just a bad habit that I see. You see how he just crouched there as he came around the corner? I don't like it when people do this. The reason for this is I feel it's much harder to hit a moving target than it is to hit a slightly smaller target that's crouching. So you might think that you're creating a small target by crouching when going around a corner, but in reality, you are just making a target that is moving less and easier to hit. So try and stay on your feet when you go around a corner, because you'll be able to strafe much better in a gunfight and you'll have a lot more mobility. Now, the reason I paused it right here is just to once again illustrate how he's aiming downwards when he comes around corners, and just in general, he's aiming slightly downwards. And this is a very, very common habit that I see a lot of newer players develop, and it's a very bad habit. He did handle this situation very nicely. He actually knifed this guy, which you will see. But just look at where his crosshairs are right now. They're actually below the guy's foot level. You want to try and keep your crosshairs at least sort of midsection, kind of at their hip level or chest level, where you expect your enemies will be coming around that corner. You don't want to aim too high because there is recoil with your gun, and if you do get shot first, you might flinch up a little bit and shoot completely over his head. But at the same time, you don't want to be aiming below their feet when you come around a corner. Okay, moving along, this is a nice gunfight right here. Once again, he doesn't get caught sprinting or anything, so that was nice. But right here, he goes out into the open, he sees the guys, and he stays out into the open. He doesn't make a decision fast enough here. Now, I know this LMG guy was just sort of laying down and camping, waiting for him to come through there, and I probably honestly would have died in that situation as well. But, I don't know, he probably lingered there just a little bit too long, in my opinion. I would have darted right past that shipping container and just not expose myself to that longer line of sight for too long. Okay, so now he's spawned back in and he's heading back towards where the enemies are, and I've noticed he shot at his teammates or aimed at his teammates quite a few times, and it seems like his teammates have surprised him, which is telling me that he's not paying enough attention to his minimap. A lot of new players sort of neglect their minimap, or not necessarily new players, just players that don't really develop the good habit of constantly checking their minimap. And it is very important to know where your teammates are as well as your enemies, especially when you're running a Dead Silence and an Amplify class. The reason for that is a lot of times you'll hear footsteps, you won't know if they're enemies or teammates, and if you are checking your minimap, you'll be able to easily decipher that. And right here, once again, look what he did. He came around this corner, and I'm actually going to back it up and pause it here. Look what he did when he came around that corner. He didn't check the popular spots. You should always be checking that window where you can currently see an enemy that's aiming at him right now. You should always be checking that window first. You shouldn't just sort of blindly walk around that corner like he did. And now look where he's aiming right now. That's not a very effective place to have your crosshairs at any time in this game. There's no reason his crosshairs should be aimed right where they are right now. There's almost no chance there's going to be an enemy right where he's aiming. You should be having your crosshairs where you expect enemies to be. So he should have been aiming at that window first, and I would have actually aimed down sight just coming around the corner, not even knowing that there's an enemy there. I would have aimed down sight coming around there if I was going to come around this corner. and I would have been ready for a gunfight against that guy. And that guy actually took quite a long time to react to him. He would have had a good chance of winning this gunfight against that enemy up in that window. But instead, he rounded right around the corner without first checking that window, and now he's put himself completely out of position. It's going to take him way too long to adjust his aim and try and battle that guy in a gunfight. And of course, once again, he gets killed in this spot. This is a death zone that you should only be passing through and you should be very cautious of at all times. Okay, so now he's spawned back in and he's pushing towards this side of the map. He notices an enemy here, and you'll notice he uses his stalker, or tries to use the stalker to his advantage, but it doesn't work for him. The problem there was his sensitivity was too low to actually track that target over. He should have come out of aiming down sight for just a split second. It would have allowed him to bring his aim over faster and actually track that enemy to kill him. Plus, he was in close quarters, so he could have got away with actually hip firing that and also staying on target. Now right here, he actually pushes quite nicely through the middle of the map. He was relatively cautious and he just got through that middle of the map as fast as possible without exposing himself for too long. And he did get a couple kills out of that. But he did push into the enemy spawn and he wasn't really ready for an enemy to spawn in where he did. Alright, so once again, it looks like he hasn't quite learned his lesson from this spot, and he is just walking out into the open on this spot. At least his crosshairs are positioned a little bit better this time, but he still lingers for way too long in this position, and after being killed twice already in this game, from this exact location, I would have completely avoided this spot because I know the enemies are watching it and they're being very vigilant on this spot. So I wouldn't have passed through here at all, but at least he did it a little bit better than before. At least up to now it looks good, but he actually just walks straight ahead instead of sprinting and trying to get out of those lines of sight as fast as possible. He walks straight ahead, and guess what? He once again dies in this spot. This is a time where I want to point out that one of the best ways to learn at Call of Duty and to improve at Call of Duty is to think about every single one of your deaths immediately after it happens. Just take that 2 or 3 seconds. What could I have done differently to avoid that death? And in that situation, he shouldn't have even put himself in that spot because he's already died twice there. He should have realized that that is not a good place to be, at least not against these enemies, and he should have completely avoided that zone. Now, after making that mistake again, you'll see right now he changes things up, which is nice. He took a different route to get to the same zone, and he actually avoided a lot of the same lines of sight, which is good. But then he strafes right back out into the open. So he handled that kind of well. He changed things up. He tried something different, and I like that. But he didn't do it very well. It was kind of a poor execution. He lingered out into the open. He should have used as much cover as possible there to take on one enemy at a time. Instead, he just pushed out into the open. But look where he's going again. This time, he didn't get picked off from a distance. He got knifed. It was a little bit of a different situation, but I don't like that he tried to push that doorway one more time. Now, I'm going to fast forward it a little bit because not much goes on right now. But you'll notice right here, there's an enemy that pops up on the minimap, and he definitely noticed this guy on the minimap. What I don't like is he decided to push the middle of the map instead of going back for that enemy, or at least trying to secure the flank from that enemy. Now, the game did end right here. It is right at the end of the game, but I don't like how he pushed out into the open, leaving his flank completely exposed and leaving that guy on his flank and on his team's flank as well. So instead of pushing out to the middle of the map, I would have focused on that guy that was back towards his spawn that popped up on the minimap, because that guy could have done a lot of damage against his teammates if they weren't paying attention. But the game wrapped up. He managed to go 10 and 10, so he did get a 1 kill death ratio. There were some good things that I saw in the game. Some of the most notable things were the fact that he used Ready Up, or he wasn't using Ready Up, but he played like he wasn't using Ready Up, which I really liked. And also he checked his corners quite nicely. Some of the issues, not learning from mistakes. He went back to that same spot and died in that same spot every time. It didn't work out for him a single time, yet he still kept trying to push that spot. So try to learn from your mistakes a little bit more. Think about every one of your deaths every time it happens. And finally, the last thing is keep your crosshairs a little bit higher. Don't be looking at the ground while you're running around the map or while you're going around corners. Try and keep it at waist to chest level as often as possible. So that's going to wrap it up for the very first episode of The Breakdown. If you would like your gameplay to be analyzed in this series, please feel free to send me a link via email. I'll leave my email address in the description of the video. Please feel free to send me a link to an unlisted YouTube video of the raw gameplay. Now, I don't want commentary over this gameplay, and I also need this gameplay to be 720p at least. I'm not going to be uploading non-HD gameplay to my channel. Also, I'm not looking for exceptional gameplay, so don't show me your flawless 30-0 gameplay or something like that. I need a gameplay that is going to have a few mistakes in it, so it's got to be something that's kind of average that people can learn from, because it's a lot easier to learn from failure than it is to learn from success. So once again, I'll leave my email address in the description of this video. Feel free to send me a link to that unlisted video. Keep in mind that I'm not going to be able to analyze every single gameplay that gets sent to me. I'm anticipating there are going to be a fair amount sent to me, so don't get your hopes up too much, and I hope you don't get discouraged if I don't end up analyzing your gameplay. I am going to be a little bit selective with this. These videos won't be coming out all the time because they do take a fair amount of extra effort to make compared to a lot of the other videos. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.